the scene like there? What's the tech scene like? Does the political issues affect, any kind of commerce? Do you have to worry about what the Kremlin does? I don't know. I'm just curious.
A little bit. So it's very easy to talk about Russia sitting here in London, right? And that's the one thing. So I personally, I remember Russia when it was in the communist days, and that was both completely crazy, but also very simple and it was a very simple life where you were well looked after. Education was excellent. Healthcare was excellent. You had everything you wanted, but you couldn't have any more, right? So
there's a lot of nostalgia in Russia by the older people for the old days.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, my mother, she's in her 70s. She loves it. I mean, she still thinks that communism was amazing. She's got a PhD in mathematics. That's kind of, I followed in her footsteps when it comes to that. She used to work on the Russian space program, and she thinks back and she was like, scientists were remunerated better than anyone else. Much better than politicians, much better than anyone sort of doing any kind of entrepreneurial activities. In communism it was hard to be an entrepreneur, but still, the scientists, the teachers, they were the doctors, they were the ones really super respected. And so there's a lot of value in that.
Right.
And it's not like that now. But when we got out of there, when my mum and I left, it was the early 90s. It was literally the beginning of the 90s. And it was the Wild West. What you hear about and what you see, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to watch some of the movies made in Russia about the early 90s in Russia.
Are there any good ones?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a list later. It's amazing.
Accurate?
Yeah, it's accurate. That's what it was like. People would drive around in their, Mercedes 600s as they were known, right? Which is moronic because they're actually not called that. It's just like a Russian thing. And they would shoot people. And they would roll up to like a corner shop. You don't really get corner shops in Russia, but like a bakery or something like that, or a gas station, a petrol station, and they'd take it. And there would be nothing you can do.
Just take it. Oh,
they would just take it. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and exactly.
Old school.
Gangster. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So somebody had to come in and sort that out.
So it was a land grab, a huge land grab.
Yeah. Okay. And so Putin came along and he got rid of all of that, and he had to. So the level of political control that exists now, and that's why you hear all this stuff about like the Pussy Riot and everything. Without that, Russia would be horrible for the people. Without that, you couldn't have a business. You couldn't have a life. You'd be scared of all the gangsters. Now you're a bit scared of the government, but that's a safer life compared to what it was like in the early 90s.
I've heard this from other Russians.
Rather be afraid of the government than the gangsters?
Yeah, definitely. The government's not going to come after the small person running a petrol station. The government might come after some big guy trying to make moves, political moves, something like that. And, we've seen some of this happening in London, some of the court cases, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But your average Joe just trying to get on with life, no chance. They're going to be left alone. Right. And tech, so you mentioned tech.
Yeah. How's tech in Moscow?
Tech in Moscow is great. So the big thing I'm waiting for is for the kind of, the buzzwords right now. The buzzwords need to spread, but in a good way, not just people saying them, but like UX and data science and growth hacking, right? Like these are concepts that are pretty well established here. If you want to go and get a good UX guy, you'll get a good UX guy.
What's UX?
User experience, right?
Okay,
exactly. Yeah. That is what Russia is like.
I'm part Russian.
Yeah. That is what Russia is like.
Right, okay.
So imagine your full-time role is making front-facing like web products. And that's the level of knowledge. So the user experience kind of science that's been developed in the States and here in the UK, like proper human-machine interaction. You can do a master's degree at one of the top universities here in human-machine interaction, literally user experience. Like all of this science is not really available over there.
So they're 5 years behind.
Exactly.
8 years
exactly.
behind.
Technically, and in terms of intelligence, they're right up there. Yeah. Same thing. So they can build amazing code. They can build, they're super smart and super, on it, but they don't have this new level of knowledge, the growth hacking knowledge that we have here. It's just phenomenal. People know all sorts of little tricks. They know how to market. They know how to build a startup. So, building the product requires UX. Building the startup requires growth hacking. And if you're in data, then you need to be a data scientist, right? And so trying to do that over there in Moscow, it's hard. You don't have the people with the right kind of training. And we're just waiting for all of that to pass over. So that's why we are based here in London and we're selling to the Russian market. It's the ridiculous way around. Right? Most people are like, what are you doing? Why don't you hire devs out there for half the price and sell to here? But actually, we believe that this is the solution. The solution is to build a kind of world-class product. London is the place. There is no difference between Silicon Valley and London. The talent is as good here. You just don't, you don't get people asking $150,000 straight out of university.
Right.
You need at least 10 investments.
Okay.
Right? Because otherwise the risks involved is just unsustainable. So firstly, before that, you have to have this money has to be losable, right?
Well said.
It can't be money, it can't be money that your quality of life depends on. Right, because then your emotions are going to be totally skewed in terms of your involvement
like
with
a
these
good
companies.
trader from the city.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly what a city trader.